when we could be glued to our TV, but I think it's a little early.
Rather be
we
good
are.
to each
We
other.
are. We can multitask. We are.
You'll just multitask tonight. This
We're
is so I've got
glued to a square.
the recording on there. Go ahead and ring your bell there.
Oh,
Barbara.
already. All right. Welcome, everyone. This is a night to behold. The jokes are out there. I mean, the jokes and then the seriousness, and they kind of alleviate some of our pain. My daughter is really very upset. And I said, Barbara, this is just, we all voted. I think we're going to have a record number of people voted this time. And I'm really proud of us for all voting. And so I just want to welcome you all, and I'm hoping that we have a wonderful meeting tonight, thanks to our speaker and thanks to Peggy for bringing him on board. And he's even got a PowerPoint, so I think we're going to learn a lot about Rotary tonight and ways that we can all contribute and make sure our money counts. It's so nice to see all of you. I wish I could say something to each one of you. You're all special and you already know that. So Rudy, why don't you do roll call, and so we have plenty of time for our speaker tonight.
That'd be great. Thanks, Barbara.
You're welcome.
Karen is left hand over here. You see with the light behind her. And Greg is lounging as usual. Great to see Carol. And she's got love over her left shoulder, I think. Peggy, good to see you. Looks like you're still doing Halloween over there. But I'm glad you got to ride your horses today. Arnold's looking good over there, kind of resting, letting his beard grow out. We have Jeff on, and we'll hear from Jeff here shortly. Catherine's from down under, and she's in summertime. We're going into wintertime, so you'll have to keep in touch with us and how everything's going down there. David, good to see you. Everything's good up in Ashland.
All is cool.
All's cool. Bob, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Super for joining us. Emmanuel's back from France. We're trying to get him elected to be the next president of France here, and trying to stay in peace here. Lisa, great to see you tonight.
Nice to see you, Rudy.
Super. Anya, how are you?
Great. Nice to be here.
Great to have you with us. And Sharon is arranging another meeting with our the Rotary Club over in Russia. So you'll have to help us help us with our Russian. Great to have you with us. Sharon, how are you tonight?
Fine, thank you.
Super to have you with us. Hey, Warren, how are you?
We're good.
You made the trip here. That's good.
Yep.
All good. Tim has got the counting votes over in Iowa. Good to see you, Tim. Belinda, great to have you back with us, and your health's improving, so that's super, super good. Marcia, great to see you. Denise, she's chilling out above us here in the mountains. Brian is trying to keep the peace in Ojai. And Terry's in the desert, about to get cooler in the next few days. That's good.
About time.
Arthur is working hard on his soon-to-be PBS broadcast out there of his film. So congratulations, Arthur. I know you've been really working your film. Congratulations on this, that PBS is taking this up. So
yeah, thank you so much. Martin Sheen took time between doing spots for the election and so on. He was so busy, but he did some special spots for us to promote it. So we're
Arthur, I hear that a little
Used to
birdie.
be on my board, Arthur.
Arthur, I heard, just a minute, Carol. I heard that tomorrow's your birthday. I just want to wish
Happy
you a
birthday.
very happy birthday, Arthur.
Okay, everybody
Oh.
sing happy birthday to Arthur.
Yay, happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday, Arthur.
To you.
thank you, thank you.
Happy
happy
birthday
birthday
to you.
Happy
Happy
birthday to
dear
you.
Arthur.
Happy birthday,
Happy
dear
birthday
Arthur.
to you.
Oh my
Happy
God.
birthday to you.
Arthur, that's love. You guys just
Each
awesome.
club choir needs some work.
Thank you.
Yeah, we need a director if we're gonna have a choir like that. So
We're
that's our
beginning of
director
the
there.
choir.
Esther, how are you?
She must be better. She looks like she's healthy again.
I am. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Yeah, the
Well,
whole
we can't
family's
say
doing okay?
Yes, everybody's well now.
Okay,
good.
super.
Yeah. Glad to-
Lisa jumped down here. So Martin, how are you?
Doing well, holding in there, hanging in there.
Oh,
Okay.
we want to see the real you.
Be
What?
a day.
Let's see. All right. Video's not working just yet. Give me a moment. I'll be on.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see the real Martin. Yeah, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about you and
We're
everyone
doing-
else?
Yeah, we're doing fine. Great to have you on tonight. Mark came on
Thank you.
earlier. His wife finally told him that we went back to dinner time, so he finally caught back up with us. And the real time zone, so I'm glad his wife's keeping track of his clock. So all that is good, and we're doing well out there. I know Philip's not on, but if you talk with Philip Helmick, it's his birthday today. And I want to remind everybody that a week from this Thursday is our next fireside chat. So it's the second Thursday of each month at 6 p.m. Same Zoom link, and we get together and talk about, learn more about each other and more about Rotary and our club. And this week happens to be, or this month happens to be Foundation Month, as you noticed in our newsletter, and which is rather important for Rotary. For us, you know, we do service work out there, but also behind there is our foundation, which helps us do projects locally and globally, make a major impact around the globe here. And we're great to have with us tonight our person that represents Zone 2627, which is basically the West Coast out here that our district is in, and from Rotary International. So Peggy, I'm going to let you introduce Jeff for us tonight.
Great, and I'm happy to do that. I know that most of you think that I know everything there is to know about the foundation, but the reality is you ask me a question and I nod, and then the next morning frantically email Jeff Cochran, who is the annual giving officer for the Rotary Foundation, as you said, with a focus on zones 26 and 27. And he's part of a team within the foundation staff that really looks at giving trends and data analysis and connections, and works very closely with Rotary leaders to acquire and retain and upgrade donors, which of course funds more grants and creates the pipeline for philanthropy in Rotary that often moves people into the major giving and even AKS level. So Jeff comes to Rotary from about a decade-long career in nonprofit administration and management. He attended Loyola University in Chicago, where he got a BA in history, then got an MS in public service management from DePaul. Lives here in Evanston, not far from me, and he talked about his family, but he's also very, very engaged in our community. Served on the mental health board for the city of Evanston and the board of directors of Peer Services, which is a local treatment center. He's been in the nonprofit sector for 14 years. He was in club and district support before he moved into philanthropy, and we're so, so lucky to have him, and I'm so proud to have him as a colleague. And with that, I'm giving the floor to Jeff.
Well, thanks so much, Peggy. Hi, everyone. Good evening. It's so great to be here with you. I really appreciate, Peggy, for you asking me to be here tonight. I always feel like after all those kind words you just said to me, what I'm about to say is just going to be a big letdown for everybody. It's just, that was too nice, but it's all true. I got to say, it's all true. And I do live near Peggy, just close enough to drop off some cupcakes and see her riding her horses down the street every once in a while. Rudy, thanks for working out the logistics and shooting me the Zoom link to have me here tonight. And Barbara, for the hospitality as club president. I really appreciate you allowing me the opportunity to come here and talk to everyone about the foundation. I'm just gonna give you a fair warning. It's kind of witching hour at my house, and I do have 3 young boys running around here. So if you hear any yelling or crying or screaming, I promise we're really nice to our kids. It's just right before bed, so everybody's going a little nuts right now, but we're doing the best we can. having said that, another reason why I'm really happy to be here tonight is because I'm going to talk to some grown people about adult things and not Pokemon and Star Wars. So thanks for that opportunity as well. Let me pull up my my slide deck here and share it with you guys. Let's see here. I think I got it. We've been doing Zoom long enough that I think I've got this figured out pretty well. All right, so I think you guys can see this now. If we have any tech issues, let me know. Poke me, wave at me, do something to get my attention and we'll figure it out. But we'll just crank this out and run through it.
That's all good.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. So one of the biggest reasons why we're here meeting tonight instead of in person is due in large part to Rotary's dedication to Rotarians being people of action. And that fits perfectly with RA President Holger Canuck's theme for the year. Rotary opens opportunities, and it's never been more clear than in our presently quarantined world. I've had the pleasure of meeting some incredible people since I've been with Rotary, your company included, of course. Tonight, we're covering a couple of topics in our short time together, but first, I wanted to give you a quick overview of the state of the Rotary Foundation with a particular focus on the annual fund. And then second, we'll review some tangible ideas to develop a strategy to promote and support the annual fund within your district. And this is just a little bit of a snapshot of some of the people I've gotten to encounter since I've been with Rotary. This being election night, I have the opportunity working with the Casper, Wyoming Rotary Club as part of my territory. I've popped in with them a couple of times, and every week they have their U.S. Senator John Barrasso pop in and give them a quick 5 or 10 minute update about everything that he has going on in Washington, talking to some of his constituents and just giving them a general update. And, you know, only in the Rotary world do we get a 5 or 10 minute update from a U.S. Senator every week. It's pretty cool to be a part of that. I had the opportunity actually a year ago today, I was in Edinburgh, Scotland. Oh man, how about the opportunity to travel every once in a while? Hopefully we get back to that, right? I was in Scotland last year with my dad and brother on a little personal trip, but while I was there, one of the things I like to do when I travel is just pop in with the local Rotary Club. So I jumped in with the Edinburgh Rotary Club while I was there. I had the opportunity to meet Katie Ridland, who was then club president. And it just so happened that their club speaker that night was Ellen Wong, the principal officer from the U.S. Consulate General from the United States to Scotland. So as it works logistically, if Scotland were to declare its independence today, she would be the ambassador to Scotland if she were appointed. But she is a paid political State Department employee, I should say. But it was really nice to be able to hear her. She had some great things to say. Just a career diplomat, really impressive person, and it was really nice to hear her talk. And bottom left, that's me meeting actual Paul Harris. I'm just kidding, guys. It's a statue we have at One Rotary Center on the first floor. That's as good as my jokes get too, so feel free to laugh anytime you want to. They don't get any better than that. But if you ever come by One Rotary Center, you're in town, you want a little tour, you'll get to see that statue and maybe shake his hand. Don't worry, we wipe it down and disinfect it after every tour comes through. Bottom right there on the screen is our annual giving team. That's me, of course, in the Brady Bunch top center square or Hollywood squares, depending on your point of reference. This is our whole annual giving team representing North America and a little bit of South America, Canada, United States, Mexico, and a couple more South American countries there. Just to give you a quick overview of our team. Before we get into the annual fund and the Rotary Foundation, I realize that to many of you, maybe just Peggy excluded from this, I'm a brand new face. My name is Jeff Cochran, and I'm the annual giving officer for zones 26 and 27, and by extension, your district. I've been with Rotary International, like Peggy said, for over 2 years, starting with Rotary's club and district support team. Almost a year ago, I joined the annual giving team supporting your zones. I have nearly 2 decades of experience working in the nonprofit sector with various organizations, boards, and committees. As you can probably tell from my title, my focus as annual giving officer is the annual fund. Inasmuch I'm a resource to you as Rotarians and volunteer fundraisers, I can help train, apply giving trends, and analyze data to help empower you as Rotary leaders to support the foundation. The Rotary Foundation has 7 total annual giving officers, 6 in Evanston representing North and South America, and 1 officer in Delhi working with Indian districts. We also have other staff in the international offices who serve a similar function as annual giving officers that might not be their official title, but they do fundraise similar to what we do out of Evanston and World Headquarters. Each of us has one overall goal, and that's to help you realize the mission of Rotary International in your community. If we drill down the Rotary Foundation's mission just a little bit further, another of my favorite aspects is our 7 areas of focus. As I'm sure you've heard, the Rotary International Board of Directors and Trustees voted unanimously to incorporate a new 7th area of focus, the environment. This is a focus on disease prevention and treatment, and we'll come back to that in just a minute. But regardless of one's preferred cause, RI speaks to everyone's passion. Given in the surreal circumstances we find ourselves in presently, I absolutely love that disease prevention and treatment is one of our primary causes. If you haven't heard by now, the networks that Rotary has in place to combat polio are already making an impact in the fight against novel coronavirus, and I'll speak a little bit more to that in a moment. But obviously, this area of focus, being disease prevention and treatment, is paramount given where we are currently, and we can only serve the world and your club by extension well in your efforts to make an indelible mark in people's lives. But as you know, polio eradication remains Rotary's #1 priority. You may also know that in 1979, Rotary began its fight against polio with a multi-year project to immunize 6 million children in the Philippines. Some years later, Rotary International launched Polio Plus, the first and largest internationally coordinated private sector support of a public health initiative with an initial fundraising target of $120 million. At this point, I want to take a moment and circle back to disease prevention and treatment, and more specifically, Rotary's approach to COVID-19 and the Disaster Response Fund. Countries with logistics in place to address polio are well positioned to combat coronavirus in several respects. Not mentioned here are the hundreds of clubs who are making a daily impact with the help of district and disaster response grants to alleviate the hardships caused by the illness. In response to this new challenge, the foundation trustees have made available a total of $3 million in grants for districts and clubs to apply. These 120 grants of $25,000 each were met with an unprecedented response. What's even more impressive is the outpouring of support from individual Rotarians who've given millions of dollars to the Disaster Response Fund. If you'd like to follow your fellow Rotarians and make your impact felt, you can log into My Rotary and visit the Disaster Response Fund page. Regardless of a Rotarian's passion, it's clear that the Foundation's impact is felt far and wide. That's due in large part to the tireless work that you do in the world. Our trustees set some audacious goals this Rotary year to support this work even further, with a substantial goal of $410 million across all funds. The Rotary Foundation is positioned nicely to achieve its most ambitious year on record. Things have clearly changed in the past months, and we can't be sure what the rest of the year will look like given the interruptions COVID-19 will undoubtedly present, but our leadership asked, and to date, Rotarians are delivering. If we dive a little bit deeper into the actual numbers, we'll see that there are some notable changes over last year to date. As we are through the first quarter of the year, our current year's fundraising effort is coming into focus. The annual fund is currently down just slightly by 7.6%, and Polio Plus is down by 56.4%. Additionally, the endowment fund is sitting at $13.2 million. We're trending toward the unprecedented goal of 2.025 by 2025. That's $2.025 billion in our endowment by 2025. It's cause for pause and celebration, and is a major testament to the dedication of all of you and your club. And I'll just take a little bit of a side note here to say, first of all, I know these numbers kind of look alarming given where we are currently. One thing to keep in mind that #1, this is only through the end of September. We had World Polio Day at the end of last month, actually just last week. And that always gives us a little bit of a bump in polio numbers. So that'll look a little bit different here shortly once we get those numbers finalized. Additionally, even though the annual fund is down just a little bit, we're still really close in the range of where we want to be to meet that $135 million goal. And the simple fact that the endowment fund is down by 25%, of course, on paper, on its surface, looks a little bit alarming. We had a great year last year when it came to the endowment fund, so that'll make up a little bit of that difference. And the other reality too is that we're still on track to meet that $2.025 billion for the endowment. Another remarkable thing is I've worked in the nonprofit sector, like I said, for 2 decades. The simple fact that this nonprofit organization, Rotary International and the Rotary Foundation, has the opportunity and really legitimately is able to work towards $2 billion of an endowment is really astonishing and speaks to the amazing work that all of you do as Rotarians to fundraise for the foundation. So thanks so much for all that you do. So there you have a quick overview of where we currently stand in terms of our goals for the year. With that in mind, it's important to understand why people continue to give to the foundation in such significant ways. The impact of your gifts is clear, but there's one aspect that is sometimes easy to overlook. Everyone in our polio and philanthropy team are conscientious about your funds, and we make an exerted effort every day to act as really good stewards for your investment. That's reflected in the highest rating that Charity Navigator issues to nonprofit organizations. If you aren't familiar with Charity Navigator, it's a nonprofit organization that rates the efficacy and transparency of other nonprofits. The Rotary Foundation has been rated with its highest 4-star rating for the past 11 years and routinely scores well in different performance metrics for rating a charity's financial health. While the Charity Navigator rating is only a snapshot of Rotary's efforts and fiscal responsibility, we've proven over the years to be among the most competitive of our peers in this area. Only 1% of charities evaluated have received at least 10 consecutive 4-star evaluations. With an unprecedented 90% of donations going towards programming, it's no wonder the Charity Navigator, but even more importantly, Rotarians hold the Rotary Foundation in such high regard. So there again, you have a quick overview of where we currently stand in terms of our goals for the year. During our remaining time here, I wanted to give you a high-level view of our most significant giving vehicles and recognitions. At this point, it can't be understated how much of an impact Rotary Direct is going to have in the coming year. With so much disruption in our normal processes and the potentiality that traditional payment methods may become temporarily unavailable, for example, processing checks, Rotary Direct expedites your gift and ensures that it reaches your designated fund. Compared to last year to date, there are nearly 1,000 more Rotarians who've signed up for Rotary Direct, yielding a full 2% increase in donations. Rotary Direct is invaluable to our giving goals and will pace the success in meeting our goals this Rotary year. There's several recognitions that apply to Rotarians to complement Rotary Direct and help your club members reach their giving goals. The first of these is Every Rotarian Every Year, or E-Ray, which encourages all Rotarians to actively support the Rotary Foundation by giving $100 a year. E-Ray is easily achieved by giving as little as $10 a month through Rotary Direct. 2 more complimentary recognitions include Paul Harris Fellow and Paul Harris Society. A Rotarian will increase their Paul Harris Fellow level for each $1,000 given, which works out to about $84 a month through Rotary Direct to achieve both recognitions. Similarly, Paul Harris Society simply asks Rotarians to commit to giving $1,000 each year to the annual fund, Polio Plus, or another approved foundation grant. These 3 are the easiest ways to build strong individual support for the Rotary Foundation in your club. If you or your club is sitting on a large sum of Paul Harris points, another way to incentivize giving is to leverage these points to motivate even greater levels of giving through, for example, 2-to-1 points matching for every dollar given in a month. The possibilities really are limitless in this respect, but foster a culture of giving in a club or district that endures. With these being the 3 most accessible recognitions available to Rotarians, it's equally important to call attention to Rotarians who achieve these milestones. I encourage each of you to take time out of your club meetings to honor those who have achieved. Not only will the recipient feel the weight of their achievement, but it may also inspire other Rotarians to give as well. Lastly, there are just a few additional resources available to you. My Rotary and Rotary.org have been covered enough this evening. In addition, my colleagues in the Rotary Support Center are still working diligently every single day to answer emails and provide some much needed clarification in these really confusing times. As your annual giving officer, I am always here to help with anything that you might need. And of course, you have each other. We're fortunate in Rotary to have an expansive, knowledgeable, compassionate community. It's more important now than ever to rely on each other for support, both individually and for Rotary. Inasmuch you have great club leadership to navigate the intricacies of Rotary and take action that speaks directly to your passions, Not to throw anybody under the bus, Barbara, but I happen to know personally that club presidents love to get calls at 2 a.m. to talk about ideas for club and service projects. I also invite you to get to know your district leaders when you have the opportunity. Thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to spend some time with you this evening. Please take care of yourselves and each other. I'm of course around for any questions that you might have, so please fire away.
Once you do a stop share there, we'll go back to the gallery view
Absolutely.
here. And we have in our club in this last month, we have three Paul Harris Fellow Plus Twos. And Denise is on with us tonight and is one of those. And Terry Felix and Laura Connor is not, but 2 of the 3 are on here. Terry?
Yes.
Why don't you why do you give to the Rotary Foundation?
Well, the big reason is one of the reasons that brought me into Rotary many years ago. And that's the fact that every penny that I donate goes directly to a project or cause. Because the way the Rotary Foundation is set up, it's unique, and that's the big thing. The other reason that I give regularly is because I want my club to be able to get back those matching funds to do our own projects.
Yeah, super. Denise? There you go. Unmute yourself, Denise. There you go. Why do you give to the Rotary Foundation?
I used to give to a lot of different organizations, and I just thought it was better to give all to one place. And I appreciate what Rotary does. I guess that's about it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. We appreciate that. And certainly there are different areas to give in, and Jeff, you might comment on that. And people have mentioned about giving to Polio Plus, but then of course, giving to the annual fund, which comes back to our districts. We can share that in 3 years for designated funds to work on projects. But then you can also give directly or to different areas of focus. And when will that open up for the environment?
It's a great question, Rudy. We're gathering funds now, obviously, and the hope is that we'll have money available for those types of grants at the beginning of the next Rotary year. It's still a little nebulous, a little up in the air, so we're not 100% on that, but hopefully sometime next Rotary year that those funds will be made available. And to speak to what everybody's been mentioning, and I think Warren asked a question too that's related besides Polio Plus, where does the money go? I think Terry and Denise, you both spoke to this a little bit. The money that comes through the annual fund, especially annual fund share, goes to 2 different funds. It's invested for 3 years, and through that maturation cycle, after it vests 3 years down the road, it's split 50% between the World Fund and 50% between DDF, which stands for District Designated Funds. So 50% that goes to the World Fund goes towards global grants. 50% that goes to DDF comes back to the district, and by extension your club, and then goes to fund district grants. So ultimately 100% of that money that you've given to the Rotary Foundation comes back to your club in some way, shape, or form, depending on how active you want to be with grants. Funny distinction between Polio Plus Fund is that none of the money that comes through the Polio Plus Fund actually goes through the annual fund, the World Fund, or DDF. So they're very separate funds meant to fund 2 very distinct projects. And the hope is that by keeping those funds separate, we can dedicate those dollars to what you as Rotarians originally hoped to give towards. Does that answer your question, Rudy?
Yeah, that answered the question. How about if people wanted to just support the Peace Centers?
So the Peace Centers are actually a dedicated fund that earns Paul Harris points it goes through the annual fund, but it doesn't go towards share DDF. It's a very specified area of focus. So it's one of those 7 areas of focus, being peace, obviously, so that those funds go directly towards your designated fund that you selected when you give your donation.
In the
Go
last
ahead.
year,
Sorry,
yeah,
Greg.
in the last year, maybe 2 years now, they've opened up funds for disaster response fund, and giving there with grants that districts could, or zones could apply for up to $25,000 if there are funds in that area.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And that's a completely separate fund as well. So if you gave to disaster response, it would go into a big pool. And then if there was a district that requested those funds for a disaster, for example, early on the Australian wildfires, if you remember back a year or two, that was one big cause that those disaster response funds were given to. There were a myriad of, and still are obviously a myriad of California wildfires. And this actually originated from some California districts, especially, who were starting their own DAFs, or donor advised funds. So they would pool money in, and through these DAFs, this money would go out to support these disaster relief efforts. And Rotary International and the Rotary Foundation said, well, why don't we do this as well? I think we can, do a lot of good with some of these funds that are coming in through these districts. We can try a similar effort, and it's been met with a huge success. It's provided a lot of relief, obviously, for COVID relief efforts. It's provided districts and clubs the opportunity to provide some PPE to frontline workers, even projects as substantial as providing medical equipment to hospitals to help relieve COVID patients. It's been pretty significant.
Yeah, so it's been pretty good. We've, of course, in our clubs work on disaster preparedness, and then of course we could always have gotten grants for recovery, and so that was this midpoint on response is significant. That's recent for us and has been impactful.
Absolutely.
Let's see what else they have for questions here.
Warren has some questions.
Who else has some questions here?
Well, I did, but I thought it might be interesting to rest of the approximate breakdown of funds percentage-wise into the areas of focus.
That's a great question, and I don't have that data available right now. I can actually look that up and get back to you if you want me to send it back to the club. But that would require a little research on my part. And now that you mentioned areas of focus, Peggy was kind enough to remind me, and just a clarification, the Peace Centers don't actually earn Paula Harris points, but if you give to the area of focus of peace, it does.
Right, and districts can become peace builder districts by contributing 25 grand a year to the Peace Center fund.
And it's a great effort, absolutely.
Yeah, Peggy, do you have a comment on that?
Yes, you're right that 25,000 to any piece purpose of DDF will get Peace Builder District, and the district can add cash to that as well. And following up, Jeff, I don't have the annual fund numbers, but in terms of the major gifts that come in, the areas of focus, the giving is pretty even, with the exception of the peace building area of focus raises less than the others. And that's because it's a different kind of program. And there was never an expectation that the peace building area of focus would raise between $8 and $10 million a year is what we get in dedicated gifts for each area of focus that are very specifically just for that. And that's different. That doesn't count the annual fund money that comes in and gets divided up.
So I've got a question just in terms of inspiration and motivation. One is, what do you find are the motivations for people to really give? I mean, what are people really inspired to do so? And then also when you're having a conversation with the donor, how do you have that conversation so it really meets the goals that you have? And also, so you're working on the high level, and what's the best way that we can work on our club level to bring in donations?
Such great questions. I think one of my favorite aspects of Rotary, and I mentioned this briefly earlier on in my presentation, you know, Rotary is, it's able to work with anyone and everyone who wants to give simply because there's so many opportunities to give. The ways to make an impact with your dollars and with your action, with your ability to go out into the world and be change makers is really only limited by your imagination. And so the thing that I think attracts most people to Rotary is that they can do whatever they want and make an impact however they want. Obviously, water projects, water and sanitation is a huge area that people focus on quite a bit. It's many of those projects are sustainable. There's a huge need, and there's always a partner across the world who wants to be a part of a global grant on a water project. So those are huge. I spoke with the district governor-elect in California when I was in Pets earlier in the year, and her passion projects actually end up are peace, she said, because she believes that if there is no peace across the world, then these other projects just aren't realistic and aren't sustainable. And so the reality is that whatever you care about is your biggest focus and your biggest donorship. And so that makes it easy for me to go talk to people who are potential donors. And when I go in to talk with someone about giving, you know, understanding how they want to give, where they want to give, the question that I always key in on is, and you may have heard this phrase tossed around a little bit in Rotary, is what is your Rotary moment? There's a past Rotary International board of director who he wrote a great piece on one of our Rotary blogs that said, you're not actually a Rotarian until you have that Rotary moment for yourself. And until that moment, you may show up to your club every week, you may pay your dues, you may chat up your fellow Rotarians, you may have a meal with them, but until you have that Rotary moment and that impact is made both with you and Rotary with you, you're not actually a Rotarian. And so that's my favorite question to ask. And from that stems, usually I can find out what the donor is really passionate about. And so that's my lead. Now you know my secret to my success, so please don't steal it. But it's really easy to talk to Rotarians in that respect, and you all are so passionate about so many things. So it really makes it easy to generate and cultivate for the foundation.
Super. Carol, you had your hand up? Unmute yourself, please.
You know, I've been through the UN. I've been at the UN about 35 years, been very close to a lot of the Rotarian leadership, which has been very tied to the UN. Severin, somebody or other's last name. And our film festival now is global in its extent. And there's a group that I met that run a Rotary Club in downtown LA, the Walkers, and they also have one in Cape Town, South Africa, which they're kind of stuck right now because they can't come back to the United States. And she was talking about circulating a global grant for the Peacemaker Corps and through the Rotary, so maybe $250 a year, and it would all go to our program, which is teaching kids how to tell their story and building a library of videos from children under 18 about peace in the streets and peacemaking and a lot of other things. Now, I'm just announcing to everybody, I don't know whether I had a chance to do that, we finally got our approval and we are now Peacemaker Corps Foundation Kenya, and they're actually starting to level the ground to build our film school, coding school, and a peace broadcasting connected to the Rongo University in Kilco, which is near Lake Victoria. So we are really international, even though, you know, we have films from about 35 countries this year, even though with COVID, very few from the United States, but the Europeans and the Asians and the Sub-Saharan Lots of stories about living through a pandemic from that kind of
So-
world.
That's-
Looking for money, looking for some way that we could get money every year from just a whole group of Rotarians to spread the word and have more kids make videos and get all the goodness that they get out of that kind of notoriety that we give them.
And Carol, you make a fantastic point, and I think that's one of the most attractive aspects of global grants, especially, is that one of the most important features of global grants is that they're sustainable, right? So
Right.
that once the initial funding runs out, they're still able to be projects that they go on in perpetuity to help people regardless of how much that initial funding was. So yeah, that's fantastic stuff.
Warren.
What's up on PS?
Yeah, my wife and I are major donors times two. And the reason we are is because we've seen personally where the money goes and it attracts us to give. You know, we've been to Central America and various projects down there for about 20 years. And once you see where the money goes and how well it's spent and working with other clubs, then you're inclined to keep giving. I look at the peace the other way around. You won't have peace until you have health, until you have sanitation and water and economic development and education. It's just not going to happen. So that's my own personal view. You can't bring peace until people are happy with these kinds of things.
You're absolutely.
Yeah, so that's totally, we have three couples, Warren and our club. You and your wife are one of those, and Karen and I are major donors, and Mark Zoper and Marilyn are major donors to the Rotary Foundation. And we feel the same way. It's our charity of choice. We know the money is used, and it's all used effectively and efficiently and creates lasting change out there. And it's our charity of choice. We hope everybody in the club does that as well. Peggy, I think you had a question for Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff, would you talk a little about the regional Rotary RRFCs and how they work with clubs and districts and how you've had to adjust in COVID, going from a lot of in-person stuff to a lot of virtual stuff?
Such a great question. And it's ironic that you asked that, Peggy, because I was on a call with the RRFC from your neck of the woods. Just before I got on here, we had a meeting at 7 o'clock with all of his assistants, talking about all the efforts that they have going on around the zone. Regional Rotary Foundation chairs are individuals who have an extensive track record of serving and volunteering in Rotary, particularly a great working knowledge of the foundation itself. There's two zones, the way it's structured. There's the ones that I work with are 26 and 27. And then in those zones are subsets of districts. So the RRFC works with the districts in those zones to draw up funds from Rotarians to help support really all of the foundation, but specifically the Rotary Fund, or the annual fund, I apologize. But they really are kind of a point person and a point of contact and a knowledge base of the foundation who also happen to be Rotarians. So where I am paid staff and I help Rotarians and assist you in volunteer fundraising, he is actually also a volunteer fundraiser, but also works with you to support you in your efforts.
Could you also, Jeff, mention for folks that want to leave something in their will and their estate for Rotary?
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're referring to, Rudy, is our planned giving team. We have an entire group of people on staff who work with those types of bequests and legacy giving. I believe your representative for 5330 is Aaron Grobel, if I'm not mistaken. If not, I can get you the correct individual on staff you'd work with. But they have the expertise and the knowledge for planned gifts. And they do a great job. So where I would work with smaller to mid-range gifts, They work with really any and all gifts that have to do with planned giving and estate giving.
And so there's different levels. So there's bequest society, and what are some of these different levels that people could leave money in their will?
Yeah, so specifically those recognitions are legacy, bequest, and they relate to the same funds that we all work with. It's just a different type of giving, different type of gift, I should say, depending on where it comes from.
It's also, and Peggy, you might mention this because you sent a note to me on this, that Rotary International is linked up with a free will organization.
Oh, I'm happy to talk about that. Rotary has a partnership now with something called Free Will, where you can go online, and it's on our website, but I'm happy to give you a link too. You can go online and do your will completely free. Now, I wouldn't want to do a very complex one, but for some pretty straightforward wills, it's just a great thing to do at no cost. And the reason it's been so good is that as one of the questions, well, it's not high pressure, one of the questions is about what your legacy giving would be, what you'd like to leave bequests for. And ours is built in to say, would you like to leave a bequest for Rotary? And it's just paid off to no end. In the first 3 months that we had it up, we raised over $1 million in bequests. And it's offering a service to people, especially during COVID. People were going, we need to update our will. So I really, really recommend people of any age taking a look at Free Will. If you haven't done your will, it's just a tremendous resource that will save you quite a bit of money. And by the way, in case you're interested, you can also make a bequest to Rotary or another organization for that matter as well.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And even at the end, you can say that instead of giving flowers or something else at the end here, is make donations to Rotary Foundation in your name. So that's it's a good way to do it, and it's an easy process, obviously, unless you have something a complex estate. But certainly is a nice look at this. Jeff, had you heard about our? Pardon?
Do it for your birthday.
There you go. Do it for your birthday. One of the things recently on the Polio Plus side is our zones, and I guess that's gone up to RI, have developed a Polio Plus society that if you give $100 a year, $100 to Polio Plus, then you get a pin and a certificate for that giving. Have you heard about that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Polio Plus Society is a brand new recognition, and it actually is not an officially recognized Rotary Foundation recognition as of yet. This is really something that's more of a grassroots recognition. It's developed out of zones 26 and 27. 27 specifically, I think it originated out of Washington State, the Seattle area, and it's been around for a few years. But this year especially, it's really taken zones 26 and 27 by storm. I think virtually every district has adopted it as a recognition. It's such an easy way for Rotarians to give to Polio Plus. And as you all know, Rotarians love their flair, so you get a really nice pin that goes along with the recognition. But it's actually spread even to the East Coast. My colleague Elizabeth Davis, who works with zones out on the East Coast, kind of New England, New York area, it came up in one of her zone conference calls too. So it's starting to spread, and I imagine similar to what Paul Harris Society has been in the past, if it's met with significant success, which it already is, it won't be long before the foundation adopts it as an official recognition. So yes, it's new, but it's also, it's a great driver for giving to Polio Plus.
Yeah, that's super. One of the things just came out in our district from our district governor was for contributions of $500 to the annual fund. The district would match with 500 points to make people Paul Harris Fellows to the Rotary Foundation. And I know Sharon raised her hand right away and contributed to that. So thank you, Sharon, for that effort. And so we'll get more information on that so people can do that. So there's ways. What are some other ways you might think of us enticing people to give to the Rotary Foundation?
So points matching is a great recognition. There's virtually, I mean, there's limitless ways to do points matching. You could do it for targeted for a month for a dollar amount, similar to what the district is doing. So you can do any kind of incentive program you want with points that the club or the district is sitting on. Other types of giving programs that I've heard of include, there's a newer one that a club or a district will match giving from every individual Rotarian if they give even as little as $26.50, which as you know is significant for the very first donation to the Rotary Foundation when it first started. There are all types of just district and club fundraisers. In fact, I'm involved with one that developed out of District 5300 from the immediate past district governor, Lou Arredondo there. She is working with a team of Rotarians and non-Rotarians, but this fundraiser is going to feature Wayne Brady, whom you may know from Whose Line Is It Anyway? And he's recently the second season Masked Singer winner champion, which I'm sure is a highlight of his career. But they're doing this fundraiser on November 20th, and all the proceeds, minus a small sliver to give back to Wayne Brady's publicist, is all going to the Rotary Foundation. So if you ever heard the phrase BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals, you can dream as big as you want to, or you can keep it small and keep it local to your club and allow for recognitions and giving there too.
We're pretty good on big goals. So.
Rudy, did you see Arthur's question?
No, Arthur, go ahead.
He wanted to know what URL we go to for the will.
I think it's just freewills.com. Is that right, Peggy?
Yeah, I put it in the chat. You'll be able to find it. Just look at the where I posted it.
Thank you.
Thank you. She's fast.
She knows her stuff.
David?
I have a question for you, Jeff, and that is, in terms of, attractors for this club, and just generally speaking, what do you hear about the reputation of the E-Club of World Peace, or what do people talk about? What's the chat? How are we seen in the Rotary world? My question is, how are we an attractor to potential donors also?
I mean, aside from the fact that everyone knows that everyone in the club is devastatingly attractive, you're all dedicated Rotarians. So it's funny. Besides the juggernaut clubs, the huge ones that just obviously carry a lot of weight, really we hear of clubs through districts, district leadership especially. I work very closely with the district governor lines and DRFCs. And so they might give me hints of clubs and some of the things that they're doing, but most closely I work with district leadership. So aside from the errant juggernaut club, I don't hear too much about club activities, with the exception of the past few months where I've gotten opportunities like this to jump in with clubs and give presentations just because you guys have been a little bit more accessible. So you guys are all pretty. That's all I know about you.
And what could we do that would get your attention all the more?
Give six-figure gifts to the annual fund. That would be great. That would get my attention.
David, he'll accept that check at the end of the week.
That's
okay,
right. That's right.
It's on its way.
Well, Jeff, one of the things that sets us apart is everybody in this club is active in peace building.
Mm-hmm.
All, like, I'm president of the United Nations Association. We just did the 75th anniversary event with the Rotary E-Club Week partnership. And Rotary and United Nations associations have all kinds of opportunities to work together. But what we find is that people come back to our club because we are active peacemakers. And that's really important, that we just don't come to a meeting and go home. We go to a meeting and go home and do our peace work.
Well, and I think as far as your club goes, that's one thing that really sets you apart from other clubs is that there's clubs that have their passion projects, the things that they've been dedicated to for years. But the format that you have as an e-club allows you some flexibility that a lot of other Rotary clubs don't have, and you can dedicate yourself to the single cause of peace building, which is amazing. And I know that you're all dedicated to the effort, and you have some really significant projects that you're working on. And so the Rotary world is obviously really proud of you and the support that you've given to the cause of peace. So yeah.
And it all started because of the 2016 World Peace Conference that Rotary and Rudy put on, and then the 2020. So, you know, our name is out there, peace, peace, peace. And, you know, my goal is, I told that to Holger when I met him at Pets, that I think we should have the next priority be peace. And he said, well, we're all working on peace. I know, but it's just like, how could we bring that into the Rotary gift giving, that the money would go strictly for peace projects?
Your question was, how do you give directly to peace?
Uh-huh.
I think there's two significant gifts that you can give, and they've both been covered in some extent tonight. One is giving directly to the peace centers, and you can do an endowed fund. The number was tossed around $25,000 is the minimum to do an endowed fund for the Peace Center. Mm-hmm. And then you can also give to the area focus of peace building, which is another way. And those gifts can come in any size and shape.
I like that second one.
Oh, yeah. Brian?
It makes it really accessible. Absolutely.
Yeah, Brian,
yes, I love it.
Brian, you have a question?
Yes, yes. Jeff, this may not be in your wheelhouse, but you mentioned that the money that comes in gets invested for 3 years and then gets split into 2 areas. And I've been wondering, with the amount of funds that Rotary International receives, is it possible for a recommendation of where that money is invested that other Rotarians could invest in? And out of the proceeds of the gains that we would receive, we could then tithe with that, you know, or somehow, you know, utilize that, you know, that greater investment benefit.
Such great questions. So I'm hearing 2 distinct questions from what you just said, Brian. First is, can Rotarians make suggestions to investments is the first thing. And then second, can you give directly to those investments to tithe that investment is basically what it boils down to. Is that right? Did I hear you correctly?
The first question is not correct. The first question is Rotary already knows where to invest the money because they're doing the very best to have the best possible return on the money that's put in. Mm-hmm. That information, there's probably some board that determines those investments. But if we as Rotarian members knew also that we could contribute to that personally with our investments, could we then like tithe some of our return to Rotary International because it's already researched where's the best place to put money?
Okay, so I think I hear you. So the first question is, if you wanted to understand the investments and how Rotary invests your donations, basically, the annual report is available from the Rotary Foundation. The one from the previous Rotary year is not available yet, but you can go back to previous reports and look over those and find how Rotary invests your gifts. If you wanted to try to direct your own personal giving towards those investments similarly, you have the opportunity as an individual giving entity, or you can establish your own organization if you really wanted to go that route. But I mentioned the phrase donors advised fund. previously, you could create your own donor advised fund that gives recurring gifts to the Rotary Foundation. And if you wanted to match those to the investments that Rotary already invests to, you could certainly do that if that was your choice. But then the money that's generated by those donor advised funds, you can make an annual or quarterly, however you wanted to set it up, gift to the Rotary Foundation yourself. Does that answer your question? Did I get it clear?
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I think we're coming to the end of the time here. Jeff, thanks for being with us tonight, and we'll stay in touch with you.
I would love that so much. Thank you all so much for letting me join you this evening. I'm going to go back to the foundation, to my team especially, and tell them how beautiful you are, number one, and how dedicated you are to the cause of peace, and just you're a fantastic club. So thanks so much for the opportunity.
Barbara?
Keep up the great work.
Dana?
Great, Jeff. Thank you so
you.
much. I think you really motivated us to understand more about where our money goes and how we can contribute. So thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to meet the people behind the scenes, you know. We've had Peggy on board, thank God. And every time we have a question, we just say, Peggy, what do you think? Because Peggy knows. And, you know, she's in the inside. And I really appreciate that. Now we have another one. We have you, Jeff. Thank you very much.
So Jeff,
All right.
are you a member of a Rotary Club yet?
That's a great question, Rudy. Not yet, but I am working with a group of mostly staff and some not staff. We're thinking about starting a new Rotary Club in Evanston. A little competition there for the couple that already exist. So potentially.
Well, if
Well,
not,
we've been at
you can join our club. So.
Yeah, we've been in
Yeah.
each club since
Come on.
2016, and we've
It's an
had
amazing invitation, actually.
Yeah.
You all,
We're exciting.
I don't know if I can, I'll probably bring down the pretty quotient a little bit if I
Oh,
join.
that's okay.
You're so funny.
Peggy's all you need to know on staff too. She'll pull back the curtain and show you how it really clicks. And
We're
Anyway,
going
I'm
to bring
looking at
Rebecca
my
Crawl in
iPhone.
too. So.
And right now it's Biden 131 and Trump 108.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm keeping score here.
Okay.
Okay, everyone, have a wonderful evening. Don't stay up all night watching returns. See you next week twice.
There you go.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Jeff. Great
Bye-bye,
job.
everyone.
Wonderful.
Thanks so
Thank you.
much.
Bye-bye.